My name is Shoshana Collins, and this is my first semester in the Business Analytics program here at Wake Tech. I came to the field of analytics in a somewhat roundabout way. I have a bachelor's degree in history with a concentration in the history of revolutions and popular movements, because when you grow up in Berkeley, that seems like a valid career trajectory. And since then, I have found gainful, non-Marxist-Leninist employment in a commercial real estate firm, that great bastion of capitalism, as a research analyst. And I came to Wake Tech because I got really excited about the field of analytics, and I wanted better tools and more training. That may seem like quite a transition to go from history to analytics, but actually the two fields have something essential in common. To do each well, you have to want to know what happened and how it happened and why. And then you have to be able to tell a story about it. And hopefully it's a story that's interesting. And ideally, it's a story that changes how we experience the present and how we direct the future. And that might be a little bit ambitious for halfway through my first semester tonight, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So tonight I'm going to tell you a story about the Triangle's best kept real estate secret. Every quarter, my company receives a survey of about 900 Triangle office buildings, and it includes things like tenant moves and inventory and vacancy rates and asking rents, and it's a very hideously ugly spreadsheet. And I painstakingly clean that data and crunch those numbers and produce this beautiful table of stats broken down by submarket and building class. And there's a lot of valuable data here, but it does not tell a story. The data becomes a lot more interesting when placed in historical context. Here's Triangle office net absorption over the past 5 years, quarter by quarter. And you can see that absorption is booming. Absorption is how many tenants moved into space versus how many tenants moved out of space. So you can see the Triangle is doing great, guys. And here's the average asking rent. After being flat for about a decade, average asking rents in the Triangle are booming also. But this is a market-wide average, so there might be a lot of variation among product types. Here we have a graph that shows the average asking rent growth in the central business districts versus the average asking rent growth in suburban submarkets like RTP and Cary. And you can see that although suburban asking rents are still growing, since the end of 2014, there's been a widening differential between the suburban rates and the CBD growth rates. Now in the Triangle, we really only have 2 CBDs, downtown Durham and downtown Raleigh. How many of you guys think that they're growing at about the same rate? Nobody, because otherwise I wouldn't ask that question. No, just one guy. Okay, who thinks that Durhams are growing faster? And who thinks that Raleighs are growing faster? Okay, people are voting for Raleigh. Well, Raleigh's rents are growing. They're up 6.23% year over year, which is quite impressive. But downtown Durham's rates are up a staggering 9.68% year over year, which is, whoa, what's happening? That star is floating off there. But you can't always trust average growth rates because they can be a little tricky. Say every landlord in the Triangle raised their average rates by $1. Then the submarket that had the lowest starting asking rent would show the highest growth, right? But it doesn't really show that necessarily it's the hottest submarket. But here's a submarket comparison of average asking rents in terms of their difference from the Triangle mean. And we can see that downtown Durham, there it is again, where tenants are paying an average of $4.07 above the Triangle mean to locate in that space. And for an average size office of between 10 to 50,000 square feet, that adds up to a pretty hefty price tag. So you have to wonder, what on earth is going on in downtown Durham that people are willing to spend that much more money? Actually, it's about $7 per square foot more than locating in RTP. So let's take a look at the Durham workforce. Here it is in 1980. And here it is in 2000. And here it is in 2014. And you can see that this is basically a completely different guy. For one thing, he's growing off the page. And also you can see that the tobacco, manufacturing, and textiles industries accounted for 55% of jobs in 1980. Those are not office-using industries. But now tobacco has disappeared entirely, and textile and manufacturing jobs are making up only 1% of the total. So the Durham workforce has doubled since 1980, and all the growth is taking place in fields like medical, green tech, life sciences, software, education, and those workers need offices. So the need for office space hasn't doubled, it's quadrupled. So let's take a look at what this does to vacancy rates. Everyone is talking about the Triangle's Class A vacancy rate of 8.7%. Everyone in the commercial real estate industry. That's the lowest it's been in, I don't know, since 2001. But let's look at downtown Durham's. It's less than a fourth of that. It's 1.9%. For those of you who aren't into commercial real estate, I'll put that number in context. That means that space is so tight that not only do companies not have any room to expand, but a lot of those offices are starting to look like this. And I actually heard a true story about a tech company in downtown Durham that was growing, and they were desperate for space, and they tried everything to get some. They negotiated with their landlord, they waited to see if something would open up in their building, and they even tried to bribe some other tenants to move out so that they could expand into their space, and they couldn't get anywhere. And eventually they got so desperate that they had to convert their game room into cubes. So they were actually officing developers on the ping pong table, and that's how you know the situation is extremely desperate. The space shortage is compounded by the fact that there's been barely any new construction in downtown Durham for years. This graph shows the average annual new deliveries from 2009 to 2017. The Triangle is adding about 550,000 square feet of space a year, and the downtown Durham average is 1/10 that, 55,000 square feet per year. But remember the difference in the vacancy rates? Clearly, we're not delivering space where it's so desperately desired. Downtown Durham will have added 550,000 square feet of space, or actually, I'm sorry, a little less than 500,000 square feet of space by the end of 2017. Half that amount is coming from one building that's currently under construction, and that building is already 50% pre-leased 2 years before the building is scheduled to deliver. So this might be the best kept real estate secret in the Triangle, but it's actually a very blabbery industry. So everyone knows that downtown Durham is white hot, and the drivers certainly justify investing in new supply. So why aren't we seeing any? That's complicated. But the major factor is just liquidity. There are a lot of proposed projects out there. If there's a patch of dirt or a rickety old building anywhere in downtown Durham, I guarantee you someone has a proposal out on it. These are just a few of them. But downtown Durham is just not out there on the national radar for lenders. It's mostly been a local market, and a lot of our local lenders just got wrecked in the last downturn. There's a lot of trepidation. No one wants to be worried about if they're going to be able to put food on the table for their families again. And Durham is still a small city, and it doesn't have the fancy capital city title like Raleigh. That's why some of these projects, which may already have commitments from big credit-worthy tenants, which would definitely get a green light from lenders if they were located in RTP or Raleigh, are struggling to come up with the financing to get out of the ground. But someone is going to break through, and soon. And that project is not only going to yield huge dividends for the investors, but will make a lasting contribution to downtown Durham's continued revitalization. And that's why, if you have $10 million stashed under your mattress, you might want to consider investing in an office tower in downtown Durham, because that place is poppin'. Thank you.